Thank you for tuning in and welcome back to the Sandwich of Coherency. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this. So I said a few days ago that I would do an episode about embryonic autonomy. And I'm going to speak on that in this episode. But part of that, I want to talk about how we got to this point, and that's talking about Roe versus Wade. And again, I say each time that I talk about this, I want to talk about the nuances, the other parts of this bigger picture that never make their way into the ears of people. Now, I do understand that the whatever causes for Roe versus Wade that happened don't necessarily hold any weight on the larger picture itself. And I think that we should be talking more about what the bigger picture is and get away from the decision of Roe versus Wade. I think that the Supreme Court moving it back down to the states gives us the opportunity to actually have the conversation about this in a meaningful fashion. Like right now, it's just animalistic. And this is not to downplay whatever reasons people feel on the left or the right, the pro-life or the pro-choice. It's not to play any of that down. But to say that it's not a state of Wild West out there, well, that would just be rude, in my opinion. But this is what I'm saying here. I want to explore this in a different angle. I mean, look, right now we have protesters. We have people screaming for violence against Supreme Court judges, and the White House is condoning it and doing nothing about it. We have Lori Lightfoot coming out making statements saying this is a call to arms. No, I don't care how she may try and spin it later saying, well, this is just saying we need to be more involved and take more action. No. Let's be honest. I try to avoid these kind of comparisons. It happens every now and then, but be honest. If this was coming from someone on the right, if this was a Trump supporter or anything like that, hell, if it was Trump or anyone in his cabinet saying something like that, or what, you know what I mean? Or if this was a Republican mayor, people would be pointing out and screaming that this is calling for violence against the other side. And I'm saying this, and I can give you a comparison to something like that. Let's take the Hunter Biden laptop. Let's bring that up again and point that out. If that was Trump's son in that situation, do you really think that it would have gotten buried the way it did? And let's be honest, if this was Donald Trump's son that was in the position that Hunter Biden is in with this laptop and that whole nonsense that came with it, do you think that you would have been able to go a single day without hearing this? No, you wouldn't. But that's the point. So I want to go ahead and jump right into the point of all this that I'm making. And I'm not going to read the entire article, but we will skip through. And we're going to read an article from 1987. Now, as you know, Roe versus Wade passed in 1973. And I want to before I read this article, I want to give people I want to make sure people understand what we're talking about here. And I want to give it from an angle so people understand the severity of such things. And again, I keep bringing it up because I don't want people to overlook this. Since 1973, 20 million African Americans have been aborted. It's beyond, just go ahead and say it for what it is. They have been killed. And, I know people will try and run that argument. Rape victims, incest. I understand that. But can we have an honest conversation about what percentage of 20 million do you really think that was? Let's be honest, minority communities, including Latinos, have been screwed up by government handouts. It's part of the whole problem. And so the history I'm talking about is Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood, the eugenicist who started the whole thing in order to sterilize and cull from society those that she deemed unfit. About 80% of abortion clinics, Planned Parenthoods are in minority and low income areas. If they were in mostly middle class or equally in middle class and upper class neighborhoods, you would have an argument, but they're not. Why? Because originally the whole idea was that, okay, you're black, therefore you're stupid, therefore you shouldn't be able to have children, because if you have children, they will be stupid. Or you're black and you're poor, you should not have children, because if you have children, they will grow up and they will be poor. Even if you were white and you were poor, you're white and you're poor. You're not one of the whites that she felt needed to be alive. So therefore, you shouldn't have children because they're going to grow up to be white and poor. Same thing with the Native Americans. Same thing with the Latinos. It was an idea of those that considered themselves to be the elite deciding which members of society should and should not be allowed to be alive. And they understand they made no mistake about that, what they were doing and what they wanted to do. The whole idea was to kill babies. We're going to kill the children in the womb of these types of people. I would give more respect if people just, came out and just said what they were really wanting to do. You quit trying to come up with sayings to dehumanize the human growing inside. You want to kill babies. Period. Say what it is. Be honest about it. I went out. I got drunk. I got knocked up. I want to kill the baby because I can't deal with this. And look, this goes the same for the guys. You went out. You got drunk. You knocked some woman up and you're telling her, oh, I'm not ready for this. Just kill the baby. This is for men and women. I'm not picking a side here. I'm saying the same goes for both. The irresponsible actions are what caused it. Shit happens, I understand. So this is not to say that everything's black and white. And I'm not trying to cast aspersions anyway. I'm not trying to insult or demean. I'm just pointing out what is obvious. And there's nothing wrong with that. We too often now want to avoid the obvious or the truths because it's so inconvenient for us. We're all guilty of it. So again, this is not the pot calling the kettle black. This is just having a conversation about what it is. Now, understanding how we got from the beginning there with the eugenicists and how we now get to the idea of Roe versus Wade. And so I'm going to read to you a little bit from this article from the New York Times in 1987. For those of you that are watching this, you will see the article on the screen here. You can read along with if you want. Pause it if you feel like, if there's a part that I skipped over that you wanted to keep looking at. But let's just go ahead and jump right into this. So it begins with, the woman whose challenge to a state law virtually prohibiting abortion led to the Supreme Court's landmark Roe v. Wade decision now says she lied when she declared upon bringing suit that it was rape that had caused her pregnancy. This is important because McCorvey is the lady's name, Miss McCorvey, and we're going to cover her in this episode because this is not the first time that she lied and admitted about it. So we have to ask ourselves, how much of what she has to say can we actually believe? Because here's the thing, she originally said she was raped so that she could be allowed to have the abortion. But let's hear what happened. Now, the assertion of rape was not a factor in the Supreme Court's ruling, and that's because her attorneys didn't want it to be a part of the case, for particular reasons. So the assertion of rape was not a factor in the Supreme Court's ruling, which established a woman's constitutional right to an abortion, a decision that has stirred emotional debate ever since it was handed down 14 years ago, because this is from 1987. The disclosure by Norma McCorvey, the Jane Roe in Roe v. Wade, came in an interview with the syndicated newspaper columnist Carl T. Rowan. The interview, conducted in June in Dallas, Miss McCorvey's hometown, is part of a television documentary that will be broadcast Sunday by station WUSA, and they issued the transcript. Miss McCorvey told Mr. Rowan that she had fabricated her account of being raped by 3 men and a woman in 1969 because she had hoped to circumvent a 100-year-old Texas law that banned abortions except when the woman's life was in danger. And this is important because what I thought was love. Miss McCorvey said that she had actually become pregnant through what, quote unquote, I thought was love, and that she decided to challenge the state law when her doctor told her that she could not legally have an abortion in Texas. In 1970, her lawyers filed a federal suit against Henry Wade, the Dallas County District Attorney. The suit, protecting her anonymity by identifying her as Jane Roe, was eventually upheld by the Supreme Court, which, in legalizing abortion on January 22nd, 1973, it cited the 14th Amendment's privacy protections. And understand, I really do agree with that part. What happens with you and your doctor should be between you and your doctor. That is personal information that really nobody should have any say-so in. But this comes down to the privacy of bodily autonomy and whatnot. And the fact of the matter is people are up in arms and screaming because they do not believe that the federal government or the state government should be allowed to tell you what medical procedures you can and cannot do to your body. These are the same people that believe the federal and state government should not be able to tell you what you can and cannot do to your child, i.e. puberty blockers, trying to have transitional surgeries before puberty, things of that nature. The same people that are screaming this are the same people that for the past 2 years said, screw your bodily autonomy. I want the federal and state government to tell you what medical procedures you should be having, i.e. forced vaccinations. Yeah. Because it didn't matter between you and your doctor. And you can say, oh, it was about health. But what I'm talking about is people that were fired, denied employment, not allowed to travel, put into concentration camps. I'm not even going to call them quarantine camps because they're concentration camps. Let's be honest with ourselves, because they didn't get the vaccine. And this includes the people, and these are the ones I'm talking about, where their doctor said, no, you cannot and should not get this vaccine. Oh yes, those people lost their jobs because they did not get the vaccine, because their doctor, their medical practitioner told them, no, do not take this. But the crowd that's screaming now about their bodily autonomy were the same ones that said, screw your bodily autonomy. We don't care what your doctor says. We don't care what the medical professional says. We need the government to force you to take this procedure anyway. But now they turn around. No. You can't dictate what procedures go on between me and my doctor. Well, let's get back to the article. The transcript of the interview does not make clear why Ms. McCorvey thought that an account of rape would necessarily help with exemption from or overturn a law that allowed abortion only to protect a woman's life. You know, I'm pretty sure they got a good reason why, but we could probably figure that one out. You know, however, we're going to skip ahead. Mr. Rowan reached at his Washington home, said, she told me that she thought she would win so much public support by claiming that she was gang raped that she might get an exception from the Texas law. Okay, even the reporter was flabbergasted. You know, so long story short, you know, it pretty much goes on. She was 21 at the time, all right, when she became pregnant. She was a waitress, and she told Mr. Rowan she was too poor to travel to California, the closest state where abortions were legal. She was depressed. How dare them tell me that I couldn't abort a baby that I did not want? Unable to have an abortion in Texas or travel to another state, she said, she grew bitter, very bitter, and in her anger fabricated the rape story. Mind you, Miss McCorvey did have the child, and she put it up for adoption, as we found out. Now, this is from 1987, and, you know, at that time, she hadn't seen the child since, so we don't know whether or not she had before she passed away. And the reason I'm saying before she passed away is because she did. Not too many years ago. And she was 69 and she died in 2017. The reason I'm talking about her lies is because there was a documentary, another documentary done about her in 2017 by FX. And what's crazy is, now after the Roe versus Wade happened, she became an advocate for abortion rights. She became very pro-abortion. But at some point she flipped and became very anti-abortion. And this is, the reason I'm saying this is because apparently, well, she apparently lied about that too. Because apparently, according to her, on her quote-unquote deathbed confession, I took their money and they took me out in front of the cameras and told me what to say, she says on camera. I did it well too. I am a good actress. Of course I'm not acting now, as I'm telling you on my deathbed that I was paid to be anti-abortion. So, long story short, you know, in the 90s, apparently she was baptized as a born-again Christian, and she began campaigning against abortions. So the point I'm making is that we're here to this point. We're at this stage in this whole thing, and this all stems from a lie. The whole thing is it revolves around a lie. I mean, should have just been straight up about it. I mean, odds are the Supreme Court, because they didn't add the rape to the case, would have ruled in her favor. But this whole thing is marred. Why? Because she felt she had to lie. Now, people are out here, I've heard people saying that she lied and said she was raped by a black guy, and I don't know that part. All right. And that's just pure speculation. So, we're not going to cast that on this woman. I mean, if somebody comes across a confession from her somewhere saying, yeah, that's what happened. Not like just some poster, something you saw on the internet, but I don't know, a news article or something like that. Please let me know. I'd be glad to go over that. I'll keep looking to see if I find one myself, but again, like I said, we've been looking at this whole thing from a different angle, and we're trying to understand the nuances of it. This is a huge thing. And, one of the things I want to say before we close out tonight is I'm very upset with the Democratic Party because, look, again, and I've said it in multiple episodes that when they can't get their way, they got to throw minorities, black people into the mix. Somehow everything is going to be about minorities. There's the whole sending, abortions back to the state level apparently now means that they're going to get rid of interracial marriages. Huh? I mean, seriously. They're stretching. And the thing is there's violence, and they're saying that there's violence going to be happening because the Supreme Court is, getting rid of Roe versus Wade. So the Republicans are going to start going violent and angry. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Seriously? Are you, who writes this? Whom writes this nonsense? And even worse, who believes it? Why would you believe it? I mean, wait, you're telling me that the pro-lifers, if they get what they want, they're going to start burning down cities and attacking Supreme Court justices and all this other nonsense? It doesn't make any sense at all. And you should be ashamed of yourself. MSNBC, NBC, all of you, CNN, you should be ashamed of yourself. That in order to try and get people who don't agree with this to get on your side of things, you want to say some dumb shit like they're gonna get rid of interracial marriages. They're gonna make those black guys you're not gonna be able to stay married to your white wife anymore, or your Latino guys not gonna be able to be married to Asian women anymore. What happens to the children? I mean, this is. Oh yeah, there was another one I heard. What is it? If they get rid of this, next they're going to start segregating LGBT children in schools and not letting them around other children. Please, would you stop with this nonsense? This fear-mongering. You're not helping the conversation. You're making it worse. You're making it worse. for everybody. Please, stop. You sound stupid. Really. But, hey, that's just my view on it. And, again, like I said, I'm not trying to cast an opinion out of the way. I just want people to understand the gravity of all this and what the bigger picture is of what you're dealing with. There's just little things about it that many of us still don't know, and we have to keep looking. Now, the part about embryonic autonomy, there was a paper that was written, and it's very interesting, but what we're talking about is the autonomy of the embryo. And it looks like we're running a little long, so, and I want to give it, and I'm sorry because I just keep stretching out into that, but I just really had to get into this one. But I promise you, I will have this episode fully done about the embryonic autonomy, real soon. I thank you for being patient. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like, share, and subscribe. I thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.